and welcome to the Wayfaring Panda. I'm Annette. Today I just started a brand new hop series called Something Old, Something New. And today my new product I'm using is this Meandering texture dye from Waffle Flower, which makes it look like the stitching on a quilt. And so you use it with products like these stencils. You can see the cards are already made. Looks like a flower quilt along with some scissors and thread. But as looking at it, I thought these meandering lines reminded me of an insect flying around. I thought about using bees, but I have some birthday cards I need to make for 3-year-old girls, so I thought this butterfly stamp set would be better, and this is an old one from Newton's Nook. The die doesn't actually cut out the paper, so you can use it for a 5.5 by 4.25 A2 size and cut out your paper that way, but I cut it off a 1/4 inch more, so it's 5.25 by 4 inches that I did because I want to leave a border on my front card panel. So I ran these through my die cut machine after I cut them with the meandering die, and now I'm going to add some spray so I have some interest on my cards. And this is a great way to mass produce because it's quicker than ink blending. And I'm using 2 colors because I wanted to do it 2 color schemes just to see, what the color variations might look like. So the color I'm using first is called Flickering Candle Distress Mica Stain. And just so you know, these are being discontinued for a while, but you can still find some in the 3-pack that they originally came in, and mostly you can find them as a single one. And I'm not sure how soon they'll bring them back. They were seasonal, and Tim and Holtz said they'll be gone at least this season. The second color I'm using is called Jack-o'-lantern, so I'm still kind of learning how much to push the top of the spray bottle to get the amount of coverage that I want. I'm trying to go a little bit light-handed with this. And then I blotted it up with a paper towel so it dry quicker and so I don't have any large splotches. I'm using Bristol Smooth Cardstock because it's a little bit thicker and can hold this wetness. I do have watercolor paper, but I didn't want the texture of the watercolor paper, and also I didn't want to use mixed media because my mixed media paper is kind of off-white and I wanted white paper. Since I'm using colored cardstock as my card bases, I cut out some Bristol Smooth Cardstock with my Fawn Stitch Rectangle dies to use as my inside panel, and then I'm going around the edges with a color to kind of set them off. So on the one that's the yellow color scheme, it's going to be yellow and purple. So I'm using this scattered straw, and on the orange one, I'm bringing in wild honey, so that way it's kind of a yellowy orange as opposed to just orange. I'm using my Tim Holtz stamping platform to stamp the inside messages for my card, and I'm using the sentiment that says, "Wishing you a beautiful day," which comes from the Monarchs stamp set from Newton's Nook that I showed you earlier. And then I'm using the little butterflies that came with that stamp set just to give it some interest. And I'm going to do the words with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and the butterflies I'm using Seedless Preserves Distress ink on the first panel, and on the second panel I use Carved Pumpkin. For the front card panels, I'm stamping the sentiments "Fluttering by" with a birthday wish. And I'm putting the butterflies on here at first. I'm not stamping them directly on because I stamped these with Memento ink and then cut them out with my Scan and Cut so that I can color them and put them on later. But I'm just putting them on here before I stamp to see where I want to put my sentiment. And once again, for the sentiment, I'm using the VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And I like that one because it's a really crisp image and very black. I use the Memento for my stamped images because it works good with alcohol inks whenever I color with my Copic markers. Then I'm using my Nuvo Deluxe glue to glue the inside panels to the inside of my cards. And you can see that I've chosen some papers for my card bases. One is the light purple and the other one is orange. These are from Stampin' Up! From when my sister was a demonstrator back in the early 2000s. So there are some colors like this purple that I have a lot left. And then the orange, this may be my last piece of that. So I'm going to have to start looking for a company that I like their paper, that it's not too expensive for the colors that I don't have any left, like the orange, yellow, and turquoise. And this is the reason I cut my panels a little bit smaller so that we could see the purple and orange as a frame around my panels. I decided I wanted to ink the edges of my front panels the same way as I did the inside panels. So on the orange one, I'm doing the same color. I'm using the Wild Honey, but for the other one, I'm using the Seedless Preserves since I have yellow already on the front and I don't have any purple. And then I glue them to the front of my cards. I put my cards under my marker carrier while I color my butterflies so that they can flatten out and the glue can dry. Since I was using my brother's Scan and Cut, I went ahead and stamped like a whole sheet of these. So I have about 15 butterflies, but I'm only going to color and use 6 of them. So for the first card that's purple, I'm coloring the outside where the dots are with a Copic marker Y02. And this is the original marker. I used to use the sketch markers, but I'm switching over to the original ones because I accidentally ordered some of these one time when I was ordering sketch markers. And actually I like them just as well. The only thing is they have the little bullet nib, which I really like to use for these images, but it doesn't have the brush nib. So it's just like the sketch. I can get rid of the large broad nib and replace that with a bullet nib, and then on the original I can still take out the broad nib and buy a brush end for that one. And the reason I'm switching over is because I've had a lot of trouble with the Copic sketch marker lids becoming loose to where the marker dries out. And I've noticed that with my newer ones, not so much ones that I originally purchased. So I haven't noticed that problem with the original, so that's my solution to that. And then for the inside, I'm using these glitter markers, which is also fairly new to my collection. I haven't used them very much. So the darker color I'm using is called Royal Purple, and the other one, the lighter one I'm using for the bottom of the butterflies is called Lavender. Originally, I had tried the Nouveau ones. I really like those, but they don't make them anymore. So this one has more of paintbrush end, and I'm not really good at using that. So if you're good at using paintbrushes, that might work really well for you. I do like the color and the sparkle it gives, but for me it's harder to use than the Nouveau one was. Although this one, the advantage is you squeeze it and it releases it, whereas on the Nouveau one, I believe you had to push it down, kind of like the weed whacker. You have to push it down for it to feed. When I decided I wanted to do butterflies, I was kind of inspired by Monarchs since they're orange, and I thought that would be really good for fall. And this is the time of the year, at least where I live, where we start seeing them more. So I don't have any orange glitter markers, so I'm just using my Copic markers. So I'm using YR04, and then I'm bringing YR21 and blending it out where they meet, and then just using YR21 on the bottom. Then I go around where the dots are with the orange color, the YR04. As I mentioned earlier, this is a brand new YouTube hop that I started, and the plan is to do it the first Saturday of every month. I'll have a link to the playlist where everyone is putting their videos that's participating, and you can click on that. It'll be at the end of this video and in the description, and you can click on that to see everyone else's inspiration and ideas. The idea is to use older products that you have in your stash and combine it with newer products. It doesn't have to be brand new. Like in this case, it was the background dye, which I've already used, but it's a newer thing in my stash. But you can also use something that's new to you, something you got as a gift or at a garage sale or a resale shop, or maybe it's something you had in your stash and you never used it, and combine that with some older products. I laid out all my butterflies on the card to see where I'm going to want to put some embellishments. I had already planned on using pops of color, but then I decided I would add some stamped images, so I'm going to use my Seedless Preserves to stamp on those really tiny butterflies, and then I add pops of color, which is the lavender glitter. And I made a mistake here. I kind of forgot that I had not glued down the butterflies yet, and so they moved, and then I had to redo some of the pops of color. Also, I'm not always the best at deciding if it's too much or not enough, so I'm still working on doing clusters. So I'm not really sure I got the right amount of stamping on here, so, or where I put them. So I'm still working on it, but I am giving it to a 3-year-old, so she'll like it no matter what. If you're not familiar with Pops of Color, it's scrapbook.com's brand, and the glitter ones are like Stickles, and the other ones are like Nouveau enamel drops. And so I wish someone had told me this, but years ago I couldn't get them to flatten out, but all you have to do is flick your finger underneath to get them to flatten up so they don't look like a ball or they don't look like chocolate chips. On my orange card, I learned from my mistake and glued down butterflies before I got doing anything else. And then I used Pops of Color on this one, and since I have 2 colors of Pops of Color, I didn't do any stamping. So I used Gloss Black and Gloss Orange Squeeze. I'll put a list of all the products that I'm using in the description below. Some of these will be affiliate links. They don't cost you anything extra to use, but I do get a small commission from any sales that the links generate, and that helps support my channel. If you are a YouTube creator and you want to make card videos, feel free to join our group. It's on Facebook, and it's called Card Making YouTubers, and then just ask to join. I'll put a link in the description below to that also. And you just agree to the rules. The rules are just basic ones of being kind and only putting positive comments in our list, and of course no profane language. And then I'm also asking that people don't use ripped off products, so like things they sell in Temu and things like that, where they may have stolen some stamp images, let's say the butterflies from Newton's Nook, and reproduce it. So I'm asking you don't use products like that, because we do want to support the craft industry, because a lot of these like Newton's Nook and Waffle Flower are independently owned by small businesses. So this month's theme was gardens and beautiful bugs. So please hop along and get some more gardening and bug inspiration for cards, and hopefully it will inspire you to use your stash and think creatively about ways that you can use the products that you already have. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like, and if you're not already a subscriber, I'd really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.